Okay, there is a data set. For example, this is a mobile price data set. Okay, I just click this. You can see that all the different columns of the data set available here. Okay, I again show you that this is my file visit. In this file visit, I double click. There is an option to choose the path. I just click here. In my system, there is in D drive, there are some CSV files are available that I want to use. So I just select a one CSV file and open. Okay, you can see that there are 1000 rows in this data set. So I get all these 1000 rows. If I click here, you can see that 1000 instances and 21 variables. What is that meaning? There are 1000 rows and 21 columns are there. In these 21 columns, 6 columns are categorical and 15 are numerical. And in data set, there is a no visit value. Okay, so I just want to share you this file. Okay, so you can also able to check this. Okay, I share you a one data set in the chat box. Please use this data set. Actually, there are lots of the types of the data are available. There is a one more type, that is a orange data set type. But mostly in the data mining, we are using the CSV file. Excel file is also supporting. But the problem is that if the number of columns are very big, like in the lakhs or in the 10 lakhs, then there is a problem of loading that files. So in a precautionary way, mostly researchers are using only the CSV file so that we can use a bulk of data sets for the data mine. But means it is wrong that only CSV file is supporting. Excel file is also supporting. TXT file is also supporting. And this orange data file is also supporting. The extension of the orange is a .mk. I just want to show you. Okay. So when I am adding this, you can see that there is a no changes. Then how you can see your data set? Okay. So for that, you have to use this data table. Okay. And connect the input of file, output of file to input of data table. Okay. Now just double click on the data set. You can see. You can find all the data set here. In our data set, there are, I think, 1000 rows. You can find all these 1000 rows here. You can see 1000. And if you count that number of columns, then you can find that there are 26 columns. Okay, so in this way, you can load and visualize your data set, what your data set is. Understand? Everyone able to load the data set? Okay, what problem you are facing? If you are facing any problem, then please tell me so that I can solve it. I already give you Excel file. Okay, please download this Excel file. Use this file visit. Choose that file. Use the data table widget. Connect the output of file to the input of the data table. And just double click on the data table widget. You can able to see your data set. Is it possible to, can you just take a screenshot and share to me? Okay. I hope everyone is done. Okay. Yes, it is right. But you first you connect with the data table, and after connecting with the data table, you are able to see. In the file widget, you cannot able to see anything. But if you connect this file with the data table, then you are able to see the data set. You are using data info. Please don't use data info, use data table. Okay, in the data table, you can see, you can able to see all your data set. Okay. The second thing is, so we can say that this is a way to load our primary data set, because I have my CSV file and I can load that CSV file. Okay. But the second way is how to use the secondary data set. So secondary data set means that data set is already available in the orange and we are just using for the practice. Okay. So for that, I am using this data set here. You can make various types of the visualization in a one working space. Okay. So you can see that this data set is available here. And now again, I use this data table and I connect this data set with data table. Okay. Now I have to select which data set I want to use. That is a secondary data set. So you can see there are lots of the secondary data set available. These all data set are already available in the orange that you can use for the practice purpose. Okay. Lots of the data set available. Okay. For example, if I want to use this smoking effect data set, so I have to just select this. Okay. And if I double click on this, you can see this is smoking data set is here. Understand? So in this way, you can use the secondary data set. And here you can find the information about the data that there are 303 instances, means 303 rows are there. 13 features means 13 column are there. And in this data set, there are some missing values. So you can see that 0.2% missing data. Okay. This secondary data set is already available in Orange. And for that, you have to use only this data set visit. Okay. In this data set, you have to just double click and you can find all these data set. You can select anyone. Understand? Yes, third. It is the data set, that is the third widget. Actually, all these are notations in this orange is technically termed as widgets. So everyone able to do this? Completed? So the first way, in this way, you can load the primary data set, and the second way, you can use the secondary data set. Both options are available. It depends on your choice, which type of data set you are going to use, and according to that, you can use the widgets. Okay. The next thing is how to get the descriptive analysis of that data set. Okay. So what do you mean by descriptive analysis? Like mean, mode, median, what are the skewness of the data set? Is data set is skewed or not? What is the kurtosis? What is the standard deviation? What is the variance of the data set? So for all these type of statics, you can use this widget feature statics. Okay. Now, if I connect this data table into the feature statics, you can see here that selected data is transferred in the feature statics. Okay, now I double click on the feature statics. You can see for every column, it gives you a mean, mode, median, dispersion, minimum value, maximum value, percentage of missing value, as well as it also give you a distribution in the visual way, in the form of the visualization. So if the data set is normal, you can find a bell-shaped curve, and otherwise you can find a skewed curve. And for the categorical data set, you can find these types of the curves. If data set is numerical, the distribution is in the form of this. And if the data set is categorical, these type of distributions are there. Understand? What is feature statics? So feature statics is a widget that is used to find the descriptive analysis of the data. And descriptive analysis include mean, mode, median, dispersion, minimum value, maximum value, percentage of missing value, and distribution. So all these values you can get with only one widget. That is the feature statics. Understand? You can also use this feature statics in the secondary data set also. So for example, if I use here and connect with this, you can find this. And you can change the colors also. For example, if you are able to change the color, you can change according to gender, according to different columns. Okay. And in this data set, there is a missing value. So you can find here that there is a missing value. But in the previous data set, there is a no missing value. So in the missing column, you can find all 0%, 0%, 0%. But here you can find two data set is missing. That is 1% here and 1% here. Means total 2% data are missing. So you can able to identify that you require a data cleaning or not. Understand everyone? Okay. Now you can see that for the feature statics, we are using the whole data set. Means if in this data set, we have the 1000 rows, we are using all the 1000 rows and all the 26 column. But what if I want to use only the selected columns and selected rows? So how we can do this? Okay. So for selection, we require a sampling. Okay. So for selection of rows, we require sampling. But for selection of columns, we require to select a column or we require to use the different types of the algorithms that are used for the column reduction. For example, you can use an aggregate column, means if the columns have the highest correlation with each other, then you can merge two column and make a one column to reduce the size of the data set. Because if the size of the data set is very high, very big, then there is a problem in the processing also. Okay. So first, I give you a example that how to select column. Okay, means how to reduce the column. Okay, so for example, in this first data set, you know that there are 26 columns are there. Okay, so I want to use this select columns. Okay, so they in this transform tab, there is a one widget that is a select column. Okay, and I connect this data table into a select column. One minute. One minute, system is not responding. So you have to just connect this data table into a select column. Okay. So I connect this data table into a select column. Okay. Now the columns that I want to use further in the analysis, I can select by double click. Okay. So in this, you can find out that all these features are there. Okay. Now, for example, if I don't want to use ID for analysis, so I can ignore this ID. In the ignore column, I can place this ID, just drag this. For example, I don't want to use this blue in. So I can just ignore it. For example, I don't want to use this column. So I ignore this. The column that you don't want to use, please ignore. Okay. So for example, I ignore the 4 columns. So I have total 17 columns. Okay. Now, again, I use this data table. Okay. To check that how many columns are there now in my data set. Now I double click here. Please check that now there are only 17 features, because 4 columns are already ignored. But all 1000 rows are there, because we are not not have to done sampling on the rows. We only reduce the number of columns. Okay. So what can I do? What I am going to explain you that if the data set size is very big, and for a particular for fulfilling the particular objective of the research, or for fulfilling the particular objective of the given problem, you don't require all the columns. You require only some columns of the data set. In this data set, you can find that all columns we are using. But if you want to reduce the size of the columns, means, for example, in your Excel file, you have the 10 columns, but you want to use only 4 columns for the analysis, then how you can do this? So for that, you have a one widget, that is the select columns. That is available with the transform. Okay. You have to just place this select column here. Okay. Now, double click on this select column, and you can find all the features here. For example, I put all this here. Okay. So you can see that how many features are there in my file. There are 21 features. But I don't want to use all 21. I want to use only 16, for example. So the columns which I don't want to use further in analysis, I just have to ignore. So for example, all this column I don't want to use, so I ignore this. Okay. So in ignored, you can find out 5 columns are ignored. The rest 16 are used for the further analysis. Okay. Now I have to see that exactly 16 columns are there in my file or not. So I just click this, double click this. You can find here only 16 features, but 1000 rows are there. Okay. Now, if you want to find the descriptive analysis of the selected data set, you can connect this. And you can find here only the 16 column. You can see here. Okay. In the previous, you can see that there are 21 and 1000 rows. But now you can see that there are 16 and 1000 rows are there. So in this way, you can reduce the number of columns, or you can do a column reduction. And there are lots of the algorithms also used for the column reduction, but this is a manual way to reduce the column. Understand, everyone? The same thing we can do for the secondary data set also. This data set, the type of the data set might be different, but the way of working or to perform the data transformation is same. Understand? Okay. Now, what to do if you want to sample the number of rows? For example, in the first data set, we have 1,000 rows. Okay. But we don't want to use the 1,000 rows. We want to use only the 60% of the data set or only 70% of the data set, and we want to use a different type of sampling, right? Random sampling without replacement, random sampling with replacement, cluster sampling, systematic sampling. So how we can sample the rows? So first thing, we already discussed how to sample the column. The second thing we are going to discuss that how to sample the rows. Okay. So in the transform, you can see that there is a data sampler. Okay. So I use this data sample. Okay. And I just connect this data table to data sample. Okay. Now I double click here. You can see the proportion of data set that it is using is a 84% and 16%. But if you want to change, you can change. For example, I want 70-30. Okay. So I adjust this. So I want only 70% of the data set. Okay. And you can find all these are the radio buttons. So at a one time, you can do only one type of sampling. So if you want to means divide data into a proportion, so you can use fixed proportion of data. Here I want to divide the data into a 70-30, and this 70-30 can be done using the random sampling without replacement. Okay. So you can see here that 1,000 out of 1,000 data, it gives me a 840, that is a 70% data set, and 160 data set is not in the next step. This is a one way. Second way is you can use a fixed sample size. Okay. For example, if you want only 10 instances, only 20 instances, only 30 instances, you can use this. Okay. So first, I give you an example of the fixed proportion of data. So I just click here. Please don't forget to click here. So I click sample data. Okay. So it gives you a 700 and 300. Okay. Now I just want to check that only 700 rows are there or not in the data set. So I connect this data sampler with data table. Now I double click, you can see that 700 instances are there and 21 features are there. Okay. And these 700 instances or rows are random sampled. You can find these IDs also. These are random sampled data. And it might be possible in my screen, the different data set is showing, and in your screen, different data set is showing, because it is a random sample. Understand, everyone? If you find any difficulty, please let me know so that I can help you.